Okay, today we are going to talk about dividing decimals. Now, we've already talked about multiplying decimals. We're going to move now into talking about dividing decimals. And dividing decimals can be a little tricky because it's just like regular long division, except you have to add in another step to it. We did our multiplying decimals first because you needed to know how to multiply, because you can't multiply or you can't divide until you know how to multiply. So you guys are really, really good at multiplying decimals and, taking the decimal out, putting it in its little bubble, and then using your lattice to multiply normally. Now we're going to do dividing decimals. So when you divide decimals, first things first, we're going to talk about a few steps and a few rules. So the first step is you're going to hear me say this a lot, okay? And I'm going to put it in quotation marks because you're going to hear me say it a lot. So I always say, make it legal. And you're probably thinking, like, what in the world is she talking about? Make it legal? Because when you hear legal, you think like, okay, things that are illegal are against the law. So things that are legal are good. They're with the laws. They're okay. So I like to say that whenever you see a decimal division problem and there is a decimal in the divisor, which means that there's a decimal outside of the house, it is illegal. So if we had a problem that was like 4 3/10 on the outside with like 15 2/10 on the inside, this would be an illegal problem because there's a decimal outside of the house. It's illegal in Miss Simonis's world. It's illegal to have decimal points outside of the house. So first step, you have to make it legal. You get to pretend like you're the decimal police, and you get to go around and make these decimal division problems legal. So before we can work it out, we have to make it legal. And that means you need to take this decimal here and you need to get rid of it. I need to put it in a place to where when I take it out, it really won't change much at all. So in order to make it legal, which is the first step, you take this decimal and you move it as far over to the right as you can go at the very back of this number. So I take my decimal and I'm going to move it. In this case, we only have to move it one time. So I've just made it legal. I took my decimal out from between my numbers and put it at the back. Now, here's the thing, okay? Whatever you do to the outside, to the divisor, you have to do to the inside as well. So I moved one little jump out here. So that means I'm going to also have to move one jump inside too, okay? The divisor is now legal, okay? And because I moved one jump, I also have to move one jump in my dividend, all right? So I've now made it legal outside. And because we had to do some work outside to get it as far back as we could go, I also have to move inside. Let's say if I had, 0 8/10 on the outside. And let's say the inside I had 16 38/100. Well, the first step is to make it legal, because I'm looking at that and I'm like, oh, I'm the decimal police. That is illegal. I cannot have a decimal point on the outside unless it's at the very back. So I need to make it legal before I can do any division. I need to make it legal. I need to take it. I need to move it as far back as I can without, I can't go any further back. I need to move it as far back as I can. So I moved it one space outside. So that means I also need to move it one space inside, because whatever I do outside, I also have to make it match inside of my house. So I moved it once outside. I moved it once inside. All right, so let's talk about the second step now. Okay, so I know my first step is to make it legal, which means get that decimal point outside of the house, get it to the very back, and then do the same thing to the inside. So once I make it legal, my second step is to raise the roof. Now, you're probably thinking, what in the world is she talking about? Well, I mean, if I have a problem that is, I don't know, let's say 6 8/10 on my divisor and 48/100 as my dividend, and let's say I go through the process, I make it legal, I jumped one time, so I'm going to jump one time on the inside to make it match. My second step is to raise the roof. Now, you probably hear me calling this little bar right here the division house. Well, once you get your decimal moved, you need to raise the roof. And I mean, take that decimal and put it right on the roof of your house. It's going to sit right there on the roof, and it's going to wait for you to divide it. So, make it legal, then raise the roof. Always put it up top. Let's say if you had 9/10 as your divisor, and let's say you had 630 thousandths as your dividend. Let's say you go through the process, you make it legal, you jumped one time outside, so you're going to jump one time inside to make it match. The next thing you would do, again, raise the roof. So you're going to take that decimal and you're just going to raise it straight up to the roof, and it's just going to sit on the roof and wait. Let's do one more. How about 48/100 as your divisor, and let's say you got 38 4/10 as your dividend. Let's say you make it legal, you jump twice to get it at the back, so you're going to have to jump twice. Oh, look, I have an empty space. That means I'm going to add my placeholder, and I need to now raise the roof. So I'm going to just extend my little roof here, and I'm just going to raise it, literally taking it from where it's sitting, raising it straight up on the roof, and just letting it sit. And that's how I raise the roof. That's the second step. So first step, make it legal by making it get at the back outside, jump the same amount of times on the inside, and your second step is to raise the roof, take your decimal and plop it right on top of the roof and let it sit and wait until you divide. So after you do the first two steps, you make it legal by jumping and getting that decimal point at the back, jumping the same amount of times on the inside, then you raise your decimal point up to the roof, then you literally just divide like normal long division with the whole, divide, multiply, subtract, bring down process. I like to say, does Miss Simonis bite? That's what I like to tell my class. Does Miss Simonis bite? Divide, multiply, subtract, bring down. I've heard people say dirty monkeys smell bad. I've heard people say, does McDonald's sell burgers? I've heard people say daughter, mother, sister, brother. I don't really care what you say as long as you remember that this is divide and that this is multiply and that this is subtract and that this is bring down. As long as you remember that, I don't really care what your rhyme is. I just like to say, does Miss Simonis bite? So now that we know, you just make it legal, you raise it to the roof, then after that you just divide as normal. So I'm just going to show you a problem, and we're going to talk through it together. Now, to make sure that we can divide as normal, we're just going to do a regular old practice long division problem just to make sure that we know the steps of long division. So right here I have 9,102 divided by 3. And notice this isn't a decimal. I just want to make sure that you know the process of long division before we jump into decimals. So our first step is to divide, and I have to think, okay, how many times can 3 fit into 9? Let me count by 3s and let's find out. 3, 6, 9. 3 times. So I'm going to put my 3 up top. So I've divided. Now I'm going to multiply next. I like to put a little multiplication sign right there to let myself know that I'm always multiplying this way. So 3 times 3, well, I know that's 9. Next I'm going to subtract. 9 minus 9, well, that's 0. And next, I'm going to bring down. Bringing down one number at a time, the number 1. Okay, now I have to, go back up and redo my whole process again. It kind of goes in a little circle shape here. So now I have to say, okay, will 3 fit into 1? I can't take 3 things and cram it into a place that only holds 1. That's too much trying to fit into a tiny place. So 3 will not fit into 1. 0 means no. 0, no. So now I've divided. I'm going to multiply again. 0 times 3. Well, I know 0 times 3 is 0. Now I'm going to subtract. 1 minus 0, well, that's still 1. Notice how I'm checking off each step as I do it to help keep myself on track. And I'm going to bring down now one number at a time, bringing down my 0. So now I have 10. Back up to division again. I'm going in a constant circle here. So I'm back up to division. How many times will 3 fit into 10? Let's see. 3, 6, 9, 12. Well, I only need to get to 10, and I said 12 when I put up this 4th finger, so that's too many. 3, 6, 9. It'll only fit 9 times, because if I go up one more time of 3, it's too much. So it'll fit 3 times. Now I'm divided. I'm going to multiply again. 3 times 3. That would be 9. Next is my subtracting. 10 minus 9, that is 1. And finally, bringing it on down, the number 2. So back up to dividing again. Notice how I'm still going in a circle. How many times will 3 fit into 12? Let's see. 3, 6, 9, 12. 4 times. Now, multiplying. 4 times 3. Oh, that is 12. Now I'm going to subtract. And 12 minus 12 is nothing. My next step would be to bring down. But look, there's nothing left to bring down. So I don't need to bring it down anything. So that means my quotient is 3,034. So that's the process of just regular old division. So now that you know the process of regular division, we're going to jump right into decimal division. So let's get started with that. All right. So now that we've done a whole process of just regular old long division, let's just jump right into decimals, because the easiest way to learn how to do this is just to keep on doing it and just keep working through the struggles until we figure it out. So I've rewritten our steps over here for us. Remember, first step is make it legal. Second step, raise the roof. Third step, just divide normally. So let me see here. If you wonder why I keep looking over here, I have a little post-it note that has the problems I want to do on it. So let's do 728 thousandths divided by 0 and 4 tenths. Let's start there. All right. So I'm looking at this. I am the decimal police, and I'm looking at this, and I'm like, oh, it is an illegal problem. I need to make it legal. And remember, in order to make a problem legal, you take this decimal outside and you move it as far back as it can go. Well, luckily I only had to move it once. So now I have the number 4 out here, because this 0 basically means nothing. So I have the number 4 out here. Well, remember, in order to make it completely legal, whatever you do to the outside, you also have to do to the inside. So whatever you do to that divisor, you also have to do that dividend. So I moved 1 time out here. That means I'm going to move 1 time in here also. I'm going to make it match. All right, now it is completely legal. I've got 4 out here, and I have 7 28 hundredths in my dividend. So I've made it legal. Now I'm going to raise the roof. And remember, that means taking our decimal and just putting it up on the roof and letting it sit on the roof of our little division house and wait until the end. Raise the roof. Now let's just divide normally. So I'm going to put my little steps down through here. Divide, multiply, subtract, and bring down. Does Miss Simonis bite? All right, now I'm just going to divide normally. So my first step is to divide. I have to think, how many times will 4 fit into 7? Let's see, 4, 8. 2 times is too many, 4, 8. So that means it just fits once. So I'm gonna put a 1 up there, I've divided. Now I'm gonna multiply. So 1 times 4. Well, that's easy. I know 1 times 4 is 4. Okay, I've divided, I've multiplied. Next is to subtract. So I'm going to subtract now. 7 minus 4, let's see. 4, 5, 6, 7, that's 3. Divided, I multiplied, I subtracted. Now I'm going to bring down my 2. 32. So now I got to go back up to the beginning again. How many times will 4 fit into 32? Let's see. 4, 8, 12, 16, 20, 24, 28, 32. 8 fingers. That means 8 times. So I'm going to put it up here because I'm working with this too. So I'm going to put it above what I'm working with. All right, I divided. Now I multiply. 8 times 4. Oh, well, that's easy. 8 times 4 is 32. Now I'm going to subtract. 32 minus 32. That is nothing. All right. And the last step is to bring it down. Bring down the 8. All right. Now back to the beginning again. How many times will 4 fit into 8? Oh, this should be easy. 4, 8. 2 times. So I'm going to put it above the 8 because that's the number I'm working with. I'm multiplying now. 2 times 4. We just figured that out. That's 8. Subtracting is next. 8 minus 8 is nothing. So I don't have anything left to bring down because I'm done. So that means my quotient, my answer is 1 82 hundredths. And that's it. It's just that easy. So I made it legal by moving it as far back as I could. I made it match on the inside. I raised my decimal to the roof. And it just sits there and waits. And then I just divide normally using my divide, multiply, subtract, bring down method. Simple as that. The only thing different is just you got to make it legal and raise the roof. And that's literally the only difference. Let's try another one. All right, next example. We have 1 56 hundredths divided by 10 hundredths. So let's see. First things first, we got to make it legal. Still got my checks from last time. We got to make it legal. All right. Well, it can't be there. It's got to be all the way at the back. So I'm moving it once, twice to get it there. So if I move it twice outside, I got to move it twice inside. Okay, I made it legal. Done. Raise it to the roof. Done. Moving it straight up and letting it sit on our roof. I'm going to extend the roof just a little bit, just so it has a nice place to sit. And now I'm going to divide normally. I have 10 out here and I have 156 out here. So let's see, how many times will 10 fit into 1? I can't take 10 things and cram it into a place that's only designed to hold one thing. That's impossible. So 10 won't fit into 1. What about 10 fitting into 15? 10, 20. Well, 2 is too much. So it will fit at least one time. So I've divided. Next I'm going to multiply. 1 times 10. Well, that's easy. I know that's 10. Divide, multiply, subtract is next. 15 minus 10. Well, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. That's 5. And lastly, we have to bring it down. Bringing down my 6. All right, let's see. Back to the beginning again. How many times will 10 fit into 56? Let's see. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. Well, I'm only trying to get to 56, and 60 is too many, so that means I got to go down to 5. All right, so I'm working with my 6 here, so that means I'm going to put it above my 6. Now I'm going to multiply because I just divided. 5 times 10. Well, I know that's 50. Divide, multiply, subtract is next. 56 minus 50. Well, I know that is 6. So now we have a little bit of a problem because I'm going to tell you something. When we're doing decimal division, okay? You're not really allowed to have a remainder. Usually we have a remainder, we're like, oh, cool, R, whatever. Well, unfortunately, in decimal division, you have to do something else to kind of prevent yourself from having a remainder. So when you run into the fact that you have a remainder, you have to do this one singular action, okay? You have to come back up here because you need something else to bring down. Well, you don't have anything here or that you can't see, okay? What is right here, even though we can't see it, we know that there are always zeros. I could add zeros until my hand fell off and it wouldn't change the value at all. So I'm gonna add 3 zeros and I'm gonna extend my house over them. And now I'm just gonna keep it going, okay? I was subtracting, now I'm gonna bring down this 0 right here. Oh, look, now I have 60. Now I can say, how many times will 10 fit into 60? Well, that's easy. 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60. 6 times. So I'm going to put my 6 times. Now, I'm going to multiply 6 times 10. Well, that's 60. Subtracting is next. 60 minus 60 is 0. And now look, it's prevented us from having a remainder. We got a remainder of nothing. All right? Now, you don't even need these other zeros, really, so you can just forget about them. We just always add 3 zeros because you're never going to know really how many more zeros you need until you actually divide it out and see. But now I'm at a nice stopping point here with a remainder of nothing, and now my answer is 15 and 6/10. Now, the reason we add 3 zeros is because there are some decimals that you could divide until your hand fell off, and there would always, always, always be a remainder. So you know, sometimes when you put a decimal division into a calculator, it'll say like the decimal, and it'll be like 3333333, and it'll go on forever. Well, that could happen to you. You could end up with a remainder forever, and you'll never get to a place where you have a 0. The reason we put 3 zeros always is because I don't want you having to divide forever, because first of all, we don't have enough paper for that. And second of all, because that would take you 7,000 years, okay? If you run into a problem where you're never, ever, ever getting to a place where you have no remainder, you can only go 3 decimal places behind. That way your hand doesn't want to fall off, okay? You only have to add 3 zeros. You could keep adding zeros and keep going, like I said, until your hand fell off. But you only always have to go 3 extra places unless you run into a place where you have 0 as a remainder, and then you can just stop. So either stop at 0 as the remainder or stop when you add 3 zeros up here. That way your hand doesn't fall off, because you could be dividing for the next 15 years of your life and you would never run into a place where there was a 0 remainder. So we're going to keep working on this for the next few days. Like I said before, if you are behind or if you are struggling with regular division, just this kind of division without the decimals, you really need to try to practice it, because if you can't do regular division, there's no way we can teach you how to do decimal division, all right? If you need help, please ask your teacher, because we don't want to leave you behind in the dust, obviously, because the further you get behind, the harder it's going to be to pull you back to where you need to be, all right? So ask your teacher, all right? Now, I know you have work to do.